And allow your eyes to close. And allow yourself to just pull the organs of sensation inward. Means instead of being so hyper-focused on everything around us, just draw that power of sensation and perception. Just draw it inward. It's like allowing your eyes to open inside. Just allow yourself for a few moments to just seeing with your inner eye, hearing with your inner ear, feeling with your inner senses. Become fully aware of the world inside. Don't judge it. Don't analyze it. Don't try to change it. Just witness it with all of the powers of sensation and perception that you have, just turned inward. What is it like inside? And as you inhale, allow the awareness to expand to include the breath. So as you inhale, be aware of that breath as it moves through your physical body, and also as it moves through the energetic body, what we call the pranamaya kosha. Just be aware of the flow of that breath, the flow of that prana. And notice as it flows, are there places through which it flows freely and easily? And are there places it feels stuck? And again, don't analyze or judge or try to change something. But if you do notice a place of stuckness, just hold the awareness there. Just hold it in loving awareness. And see what happens. You may notice that simply the presence of your presence, the presence of your awareness is enough to allow that block to release. But just hold the awareness gently and lovingly with the breath as it moves through the being. If the mind wanders, just bring it back. We're not changing anything. We're not doing anything. Meditation is not about doing. It's actually about undoing. Undoing the false identifications we usually have. Undoing the attachments. So just allow that awareness to be fully present inside of you and all the different layers of your being. And be present with the breath as it flows through the different layers. Allow the breath to just touch and awaken and illumine all of the cells in your physical body as it flows through the energetic body. As it flows even through your mental body and intellectual body, just allow the awareness to expand of that presence of the sacred prana being carried in and out on the breath. Slowly and gently, bring the palms of your hands together at chest level and just gently rub them against each other. Press the palms of your hands into your closed eyes. Slowly lower the hands and open the eyes. Welcome. to Satsang. Okay, so this is a follow-up question that we had spoken about a week ago regarding a decision that the Supreme Court in India passed recently against the allowance for gay marriage. So it's a follow-up question to that. And it says, my family is forcing me to marry a straight person, but I am gay. If I tell the truth to my family, my whole life will be ruined. But if I marry a straight person, my whole spiritual journey will vanish. Should I be quiet and just go with the flow of what my family wants? So the question was sent in anonymously. Without getting into the political aspects of all of this that we spoke about a week ago, the highest way to embody and embrace and live on our path is in truth. Whether it's your spiritual life, and even whether it's your family life. We may think that if I just lie and go along with it, everybody will be happy. But the truth is, if you're really in a loving relationship with someone, if you really love someone, they're your child, they're your sister or brother, you want them to live their truth. You don't want them to lie to you. I mean, could you imagine finding out that your son or daughter or sister or brother had lied to you for not just years, but decades? And that they'd had to lie to themselves and society their entire life because they were worried that you'd be angry? I can't even imagine how devastating that would be. To know that someone you loved hadn't trusted you enough to tell you the truth. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It isn't easy. I've been witness to both sides. Young gay people deciding that they are not going to go along with what their family wants, that they're not going to get married to a straight person, and I've seen the difficulty that they face. But I've also seen the other. I've seen marriages in which just to go along, just to make the family happy, people give up, deny the truth of who they are. And what I promise you is it doesn't make anybody happy. When it eventually ends in divorce, nobody is happy. Nobody says, well, at least we tried. It's always a matter of, why did you deceive us? We should have known this from the beginning. And this is true really about everything, about who we are. The spiritual path, a righteous path, a dharmic path, a purpose-driven life, whatever you call it, it requires courage. And whether that courage is because you're standing up for something as challenging and difficult and even controversial in some societies as to your sexual preference, or whether it's just that you don't want to be a doctor or an engineer or whatever it is that your parents want you to be, that everybody else in the family is. But going along with something that is not who you are doesn't actually make anyone happy. And this is where courage is required. And it's where every one of us really is called upon to stand up in our highest truth. And obviously we try to do it as kindly as possible. But we recognize that truth is a core, critical aspect of Dharma. Now, Bhagavan Krishna says something really interesting in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, dharmic speech, tapas of speech, is that which is true, kind, and beneficial. Now, that was a surprise to me because I was always one of those coming from America where it was truth at all costs. Whatever it may be, tell the truth, suffer the consequences, let other people suffer the consequences. If they can't handle it, that's their problem. Truth at all costs. What I've learned as I've grown both in maturity and spiritually is that isn't always true. But the places that it's not true are not about the core of who you are. It's things like you're walking out of the house to go to a wedding, a party, a something, and your friend, your wife, your child says, "Do I look fat in this dress?" Now, maybe they've gained some weight recently. So essentially they're going to look fat in whatever they wear. But you're running late. It's too late to change. As it is, they've gained weight, so it's not like there's something else they could wear that's going to change that. To say, yes, you look fat, is going to do nothing but make them feel miserable. It is most definitely not kind. It is most definitely not beneficial. And so that would be considered something that you would not say. Now, you might later on in the night or later at an appropriate time raise the subject that this person seems to have put on an unhealthy amount of weight and maybe they'd like to join a gym or, whatever it might be, depending on the relationship. But just because something is right to say doesn't mean it's always right to say in every moment. So that's the teaching on right speech from the Bhagavad Gita. But to hide the truth of who you are is neither kind nor beneficial. It's taking the easy way out. It's the conflict-averse way of moving through life. And while we all should, avoid as much conflict as possible, obviously, there are times and places where a little bit of conflict is necessary. If you're up against someone or something that is pushing you or wanting you to not live your truth. And so to our anonymous question asker, I would say most definitely, do not under any circumstances get married to a straight person if you know deep in you that you are gay and that there is no changing that. Because all you're going to do is make yourself miserable, make your new spouse miserable, live a lie, and make everyone who cares about both of you miserable. It's better to have a difficult discussion now than to repent decades later. Being true to yourself and being true to others is a critical aspect of spirituality. And if people really love us, yeah, they do want us usually to live according to their agenda. But that's because they think that we're going to be happy according to their agenda. It's because it's all they know, and so they think, well, this is the way to do it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, more than living according to their agenda, people who love us want us to be happy. And so if you can really show them the truth of who you are and have that courage, it's absolutely the best decision. Otherwise, think about it. You're depriving the person you marry of essentially their whole life, of the possibility for them of being married to someone who actually wants to be with them. No one should ever feel like they are giving away their entire lives to someone who's essentially compromising or settling to marry them. That is not something you should ever do to another being. And so, if you're getting married to someone just to calm your family down, it's violence, it's hinsa against your own true self, but also very directly against this person you're marrying. Because then you're not just lying about yourself, you're taking someone else along for the ride and ruining their life. So have the courage. Have the courage to be honest and open. At the end of the day, I promise you, it is the right decision. It will be difficult for a little while, or even for a long while. But it's absolutely the best decision. Other questions? Any question from anyone here? Yes, of course. माइक एक काम करो हाँ या इस तरफ थोड़ा सा और बस
राधे कृष्णा। मेरा नाम किशन है और थोड़ी सी घबराहट हो रही है सवाल पूछने में।
No problem.
सो मैं इससे काफ़ी पिछले 10 साल से परेशान हूँ और मैं whenever I have a bad dreams about relatives and friends, it seems to come true for them. Initially I used to inform people, but after a while they called me superstitious, panautis and all, and now I am feel demotivated. I perform some rituals, havan, pujas, but nothing changed. I engage in lot of negative overthinking, and most of my negative predictions comes true nowadays, and people are scared to argue with me, and what I can do to overcome negative thinking. And when I try to think positively, my mind doesn't allow it. It's like always.
Yeah, great. So the nature of the mind is to go toward the negative. That's just the quality of the mind. It's, if you realize going back through evolution and survival, being happy, being trusting, being peaceful, seeing the glass as half full, from a spiritual and emotional perspective, is very advantageous. But from a physical survival standpoint, not so much. And so we are the offspring, as I always say, of those who worried, of those who saw the glass half empty and so went off in search of more water, rather than those who thought, still got half full, doing well. Those are the ones who ended up living long enough to procreate. So we are their offspring. So the mind tends to be negative. It's the nature of the mind. But recognize that that is not your spiritual highest, truest self. That's the part of your mind that also looks at people and wants to have sex all the time. It's the same part of your mind. Because it's all about physical evolution. In order to survive as a species, we need to be afraid, take care of ourselves physically, grab things from others. Sharing is not evolutionarily advantageous. Grabbing is. Having lust is, because then I'm more likely to have sex with more people, means I'm more likely to have more children, means these species will continue. But in the same way that we understand, just because I have lust or just because I have greed doesn't mean that I go along with it. And we work with it. We understand this is not something to give into. This is just a quality of what we think of as kind of the animal mind, the lower mind, the lower brain, the part that has been evolving over tens of millions of years just to literally pass on our genes to the next generation. It's all it's for. Live long enough to pass on your genes. So you don't want to give in to that any more than you want to give in to lust or greed. But recognize that, yes, okay, this negativity, this is part of the survival mechanism of the brain. No problem. But then you work with it. You meditate, you do japa, you work with positive ways of thinking. I mean, there's a whole science around changing your cognition, changing your thought patterns. And it's not rocket science, it's actually relatively simple. Because thoughts are they're like this. And all you've got to do the moment you see one arising is just change it. Just change it. Just change it. I mean, do an experiment. Close your eyes right now. Just close your eyes. And in your brain, I want you to shout hate. Just shout hate as long as you can, as loud as you can in your own mind. Now shout love. As loud as you can, love, love, love in your brain. Okay, open your eyes. Could you do it? Simple, right? You could shout hate, then you could shout love. Could you hear yourself? All right, so just changed your thoughts. Literally, it is that simple. The difference is that right now you were conscious, you were paying attention. The dilemma for most of us is most of the time we're not conscious, we're not paying attention, so the mind just does what it wants to do. It goes where it's programmed to go, which is negativity. And so for the solution to work, you have to bring consciousness, focus, attention. As far as your negative dreams go, I would say it's probably not such a good idea to start calling people up in the morning and saying, hey, I had a dream that you died, be careful. I can see how that might disturb people and make them not necessarily want to hang out with you so much. But if you say that frequently your dreams come true, you don't have to tell them about it like that. But you can do two things. Number one, pray for them. Because what it means is that there is a power in your mind. If you've got that power of intuition, pray for them. The minute you wake up in the morning, pray for them. Hold them in your prayers all day long. Visualize good things happening to them. Use that power of your mind to give a different picture to what you saw in your dream. And you may want to say something really gentle to them. Like, let's say you have a dream that they drown in the ocean. So you don't call them up and say, hey, I had a dream that you drowned in the ocean, be careful. But you may call them up and say, especially if you know they live on the beach or they're going to the beach, say, hey, I don't know, I've just got this intuition. Be careful. Just be careful today. I don't know why. Maybe it's nothing. But just came to me, I thought I should share it with you. Just a feeling. Just be careful. Now that comes off as caring for someone, rather than, hey, I dreamed you drowned. So think of ways to share your love and your care in a way that is not pushing people away or freaking them out. And remember the power of prayer. Very important. Wonderful. Yes. Here, you can come right here. So, that one. Yeah, come.
Yes. I suffer for since years under feeling really ambivalent to my eldest son.
I'm so sorry, feeling?
Ambivalent.
Ambivalent,
To my eldest son of there's a deep conflict. He identified a lot with my divorced women, and sort of against me.
Yeah.
And it's expressed by parenting me, you know, like you should not do this, you should not do that. He's codifying me if he's FD in juristic.
Yes.
So he's
A lawyer.
A lawyer, yes. He tells me every time what is right, what is wrong, and so on. And I hate it, you know. It's
Of course.
nothing which I
Yes.
really appreciate. And so I more and more went away from him.
Yes, yes.
And saw his narcissistic character, which I really not appreciate.
Yes,
too.
of course.
And now I'm at a point where I say, so if it must be, it will be anyhow my son. I will be open for him
Of course.
when he opens for me or he wants
Yeah.
something from me. I'm there for him, but I can't stand him anymore, you know.
Yeah. I understand.
And this is I don't know what to do.
So the first thing to do is to forgive yourself for having those feelings. We were speaking a few nights ago about loving someone you don't like. It happens. There are people, and sometimes they're even people in our family, and sometimes they're even our children, who develop personalities for a variety of different reasons that we just don't like, especially if they become narcissists, if they tell us what to do all the time. It's very difficult. But as a parent, there's obviously a lot of guilt around that, because as parents you feel like not only are you supposed to love your children, but you're also supposed to like them, you're supposed to want to be with them, it should be unconditional. Your son is old enough, he's no longer a young child. If he were young, if he were still a real child, going through a phase, I would say, just keep loving him anyway. Whatever he does, just love him anyway. He's just pushing boundaries. But your son is a full-grown adult. And as full-grown adults, we need to be held to standards of civility, of kindness, of respect. Just because someone's your parent doesn't mean you can throw kindness out the window or you can throw respect out the window. It sounds, as you've said, like he's holding still a lot of anger from your divorce from your wife. And it seems to me that it's really important for you to set boundaries. Just like you would with any other person, in which you say, look, I love you. You are my son. I will always love you. I am always here for you. Whenever you need, whatever you need, I am here. And there is a level of respect, kindness, that I require in my relationships. And I need you to change how you interact with me. I don't want to be told what to do. And then you can be strong about it. And if he continues to do it, you should feel free to get up and walk out of the room. Sitting in a restaurant, get up, walk out. I don't mean walk out of his life. I don't mean refuse to talk to him again. But just in that moment, that interaction, you're done. There's no rule that says just because someone is a family member, you need to sit there and be verbally abused. If he was physically abusing you, you wouldn't take it. If every time you saw him, he was hitting you, you'd establish some boundaries. But when people are verbally abusive to us or emotionally abusive to us, it's a lot harder to establish boundaries. But it's just as important. And you need to establish them. And then you need to have the courage. You know, he starts up, you say, please, as I've said, I don't want to have this conversation. You know, give him a chance. Maybe he forgot. Maybe it's just his tendency. Give him a chance. As I said, I don't want to have this conversation. I don't need to be told what to do. And if he keeps doing it, just stand up and walk out. And what he'll learn is if he wants to have a full dinner with you, or a full lunch, or a full cup of tea, or a full conversation, he has to change how he is because you take care of yourself. And you stand up and you walk out the same way that you would walk out if he started hitting you. You might not hit him back. He is your son. But I'm sure you wouldn't take it that you would stand up and you would leave. And you need to have that same love and respect for yourself. Just because he's your son doesn't mean he has the right to hurt you and harm you in that way. You might want to suggest to him, if you think he's open to it, that it seems like the anger that he holds from the divorce is still impacting his ability to move through his life, his ability to interact with you, and that it might be a really good idea for him to talk to someone about it. I warn you, people in general tend not to respond very well when you suggest they get therapy, but it's worth a try anyway. Do it as lovingly, as kindly, as compassionately as possible. But just suggest, it sounds like he's got some stuff to work through. Maybe he should try. Offer that to him. And again, I'm not saying he'll take it. But don't feel guilty for being unable to like being in the presence of someone, even if it's your son, who's constantly negative and harassing you, verbally abusing you, telling you what to do. Set those boundaries. Take care of yourself. Divorces happen. And even though it's very easy to point fingers and have fault, there's always two sides. And it's always usually a split that's not one person's fault. But children do tend to get caught in the middle and end up frequently taking a side. But he's old enough to let that go. And again, you may want to suggest that he let it go. If there's another family member or someone else you know who he respects, maybe you can have that person talk to him and suggest that he get some help in letting go of the anger he's holding on to. Good. And it's a beautiful practice for you to keep loving him even without liking him, and even without choosing to be with him. Yeah.
राधे राधे। बचपन से ये सीखा कि तेन त्यक्तेन भुंजीता वो प्यार है, दैट इज लव। बट जब लोगों को देखती हूँ तो उनका सेट ऑफ माइंड अलग है। मैं इसलिए कह रही हूँ बिकॉज ऑफ आई एम प्लानिंग टू फाइनलाइज लाइफ पार्टनर। ओके, अभी ये क्वेश्चन आ रहा है कि व्हाट इज लव, क्योंकि मेरा कोई पास्ट अफेयर नहीं रहा है। जो लोग मुझे मिल रहे हैं, आई फील ब्लेस्ड और हैप्पी कि वो ऑनेस्ट है। अगर अफेयर रहा है तो दे आर शेयरिंग विद मी। तो क्वेश्चन ये भी आता है कि प्यार कितनी बार हो सकता है लाइफ में, क्योंकि वो बता रहे हैं कि मुझसे प्यार है। ऐसे कई लोग हैं जो प्रपोजल रख रहे हैं, बट अभी क्वेश्चन हो रहा है कि लाइफ पार्टनर कैसे फाइनल करूं, क्योंकि इन्फैचुएशन, अट्रैक्शन, लव में शायद बहुत छोटा अंतर है। और मैं अलग वे में प्यार को देखती हूँ कि त्याग करके तेना त्यक्तेना, और सामने तो अलग ही सिनारियो है। तो समझ नहीं रहा है कैसे फाइनल करूं लाइफ पार्टनर।
Beautiful. How to find your life partner. She's at a stage where she's just trying to finalize who she will marry. There are several proposals, but how to know? How to know who's the right one? And obviously love is not about infatuation or passion or any of that. So there needs to be, on some level, I would suggest, at least a bare minimum of attraction. Now, attraction is not enough to last you through a marriage, but it's very, very helpful if there is at least a bare minimum. Doesn't have to be Mr. Universe or Miss Universe. Doesn't have to be somebody you see, across the crowded room and say, oh my God. But it should be someone who the thought of getting physically closer to them sounds nice rather than sounds awful. In a marriage, you want to be happy about the idea of being physically close to someone. And if there's not any attraction at all, then that would be a very difficult situation to be in. Because simply thinking that someone is very nice or kind, or you share values and all those things, that doesn't necessarily make you want to be physically intimate with them. So it is important. Attraction is not the basis upon which you should decide, but ideally you should try to make sure that it's part of the package, at least on some level. But along with that, it has to be someone who shares, at the bare minimum level, your values, your ethics, your priorities. Doesn't mean you have to agree on everything. It's nice to have some variety. But you want to agree on really core life values. What is important? What are the most important things to raise children with? How do you make decisions? These are the things to ask. Because these are the things you really want to know. What are someone's core values? What are their priorities? If they've got difficult decisions to make, how are they going to make them? What's the deciding factor for them? So it helps to have as much overlap as possible. It also really helps to be in the same direction. Where do you envision your life 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now? And where does that person envision it? I mean, if you envision a situation 30 years from now where you've had kids and you've had jobs and you've done well and, you know, everything is fine and kids are well educated and whatnot, and you've spent a lot of time together, you haven't like gone crazy in work and, you know, just trying to make more and more and more money, that you've really prioritized family and spirituality and being in nature and growth on every level, seva. And so 30 years from now, you envision that you're, you know, winding down in the office and starting to do more seva, starting to be more engaged spiritually. And he says, 30 years from now, I'm going to be at the peak of my career, and I'm going to be still working 100 hours a week because, you know, every moment, as long as I've got breath in my body, I want to be earning money. There's no such thing as too much money. There's no such thing as enough. 30 years from now, we'll have houses on all the continents. Well, there's nothing wrong with that view. But those two views are going to create a lot of conflict as you start looking at building a life together. So it's important to kind of understand, what do you visualize life being? Another part, it's going to sound really small, but from what I've seen, it's really important. You should be able to laugh together. Being able to laugh at life, at yourself, at each other, at the circumstances you find yourself in, is one of the best things for your physical, emotional, mental, spiritual health. Not having someone you can laugh with is very difficult. So it should be someone who has a sense of humor, who you get along with, you know, who doesn't have to be a stand-up comedian, but just someone who's able to laugh at life, who doesn't take themselves too seriously, so that the two of you, you makes life a lot smoother if you can laugh your way through it. And from those things, love blossoms. Love is that which grows. You're not going to necessarily find someone who loves you in that way immediately, unless you're prepared to date them for the next 10 years, which in most Indian families is a little more than they're prepared to tolerate. Love is something that blossoms. It grows over time. Don't necessarily expect, in this culture with the way marriages happen, that you're going to find someone who already loves you in that way and who you already love in that way. But is it someone with whom you feel that that love can blossom, that there's already a seed? Make sure there's a seed at least. Because without a seed, you don't get a blossom. So there's got to be just a seed that, yeah, this can blossom into something very beautiful. Wonderful. Come and get married here on the banks of Ganga. We'll send you off with a good start. Wonderful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening, everyone. Beautiful day to our family joining us from online. And again, just to remind you as always that through the day we have so many beautiful programs and activities of yoga, meditation, morning yagna, of course the arati. Everything is open for everyone, free for everyone. There's no charge for any of it. So whether you're staying in the ashram or not, we invite you to take part in any or all of the beautiful daily activities. There's a schedule up in our reception area here with the timing and the venues of that. And I look so forward to seeing you all tomorrow.